But this is kind of an overview in picture of everything that we did. And then I want to give Jim and Lloyd a chance to share and stuff, and then I'll give my 2 cents for what it's worth. But here we go. I want to give you a couple stats. I kind of put this together to just give Trent a rundown of what we did. There were a total of 4 churches represented along with Church on Main. Fall Ground Baptist Church, the pastor and his wife from there went. Rodney Aiken and his wife are members at Woodstock now. And then church in Clearview Baptist in Alabama was the other church that went. That was Clearview's first mission trip ever, and their pastor's first mission trip ever. And it showed a little bit from time to time, but they did an awesome job, and we worked together great as a team. So there's 4 churches. Well, and I'll just read what it said here. We were able to provide some mentoring and guidance to the church from Alabama, as this was their first mission trip, and they were on a learning curve. after a few early hiccups, teams worked well together, and a number of relationships were forged. It was really cool. There was a young man that he's a senior in high school, is fixing to go off to Liberty University to go into aviation. Liberty has an aviation department there, and so me, Lloyd, and him talked about airplanes the whole so that was kind of cool. So I did not. There was a group of pastors and leaders, and we were kind of doing our own gig, and then Lloyd and Jim and the rest of the teams were working more with kids and stuff. But I, along with 4 other pastors, we led 3 different pastors training conferences. Worked with 60+ pastors between the 3 groups. That was kind of a fluid situation. We went in there thinking we were only going to do it Monday, and then, well, maybe we'll do it on Wednesday, and no, we're not going to do it on Wednesday. Yes, we are. No, we're not. Yes, we are. And then maybe we'll do it on Thursday. No, we won't. Yes, we will. I don't know. Yes, we will. But really, really awesome time with them. We held 3 different VBSs, 2 up in villages, and then 1 at the main school, the Good Samaritan services, and about 300 total kids were impacted with that. And we passed out, if you saw when the teams were on the flatbed truck, and there's a picture of Jim speaking, and there's these red, orange, and white bags. Those are food distribution bags. And we passed out about 300+ bags in the villages and in different places. The church sent $500 in petty cash for different ministry opportunities, and we gave $200 to a church and village that needs to put a new roof on their building. They had raised all the money to buy all the supplies for the new roof. They just did not have the money for the labor. So we took the lead and took $200 of that, and to support that. That was probably about 2 o'clock in the afternoon when that decision was made. By 7 o'clock that night, the full $2,400 had been raised to cover that. Then there was another pastor who has no transportation except for his 2 feet. And he has to walk 4 hours to get to the training center. And where he lives, you see these little motorcycles. I am in love with those motorcycles.
Not me.
I want one of those motorcycles so bad. Kim says no, I don't. It doesn't matter. I've shopped it out. When you finally get them to pass emissions, they're so underpowered they won't work in the United States. But they are so cool. But where he lives, the motorcycle won't work. The terrain is so bad you can't even get there by motorcycle. So he needs a 4-wheeler. So we gave $200 towards getting that 4-wheeler. Let's see. And Jim went down there with no kids, and now he's got 2 grandkids.
Yep.
He ended up sponsoring 2 kids while we were down there, and then we did a number of other things. We worked in a not an old folks home, but it was a kind of a daycare kind of center and feeding center for elderly. And we spent an afternoon with them, and got to tour a lot of the facilities with Good Samaritan and the school and everything. So I want to give Jim and Lloyd an opportunity, and then I'll take up whatever time that they don't use. Anyway, who wants to go first? Don't wrestle.
Yeah.
You want to wrestle?
I didn't know why you sat down.
You can sit, you can stand.
Never having been on a mission trip, my son had been to Mexico, and never been on a mission trip before, so it was all kinds of garbage runs through your mind about, well, we're going to Honduras, well, let's go backward, and your mind conjures up a whole lot of different stuff than what it actually is. After a few days there, if I'd been really bad and they said, we're going to exile you to San Marcos de Colon, I would say, that'll work. It was a beautiful place. Honduras itself, the country, is absolutely gorgeous. You use up all the memory on your cell phone taking pictures of the mountains because you say, oh, this is so gorgeous until you go around the curve and then it's more gorgeous than the last one. Where there's different topography that you want to take. I found the people there to be extremely friendly. The little kids, when we go to the churches or to the school, the little kids would clamber all over each other to get to hug you or just touch you, or, you know, they were so sweet. I had to be called down about talking about snatching one of them and carrying it home with me. Because they said that Honduran children are in danger of that. So, at any rate, they were wonderful. The people were wonderful. They'd be riding their, which I want. He wants a motorcycle. I want one of those tricycle taxis. Especially the one with the spoiler mounted on the back with that thing at the top speed of 40 or so miles an hour. But they'd be driving their taxi through down the street in front of the mission. And they'd see you and they'd smile and wave. These people seemed to be just extremely happy that we were there. They seem to love Americans, American flags. I've got a picture of a little boy at one of the churches was wearing, he was about 3 or 4, and he had a shirt on with American flag on it. I saw American flag on people's hats. American flags painted on the wall at the missionary school, elementary school that we went to. But that may have been because of the people that started the mission that they had. It was prevalent there. The town itself is a little strange. You have perfectly beautiful places here and tin shacks right behind it, or a rundown business next to it. The people seem to be doing the best they can. But we went to the Vacation Bible School, the very first one we went to. They were doing the little bead thing and tying it around their wrist, and there was a little boy about maybe 3. He had his bracelet on his wrist. He was out on the front entrance to the church. He comes running in as fast as he could, hitting the floor on his knees, and he stuck that hand up with his bracelet on there, and he was happy about that. The kids seemed to be very pleased that we were there. And then we went to the dining room for the elderly, as they call it, and the sign says comedor, which means dining room, and then ancianes, which seems a whole lot like ancient. That's their way of saying elderly. But they sang songs and greeted us with about 3 or 4 songs, full volume, and then folks from Alabama, I think, said, well, that won't do, so we sang back at them some of our songs. But it was, then we served them, and it was an interesting time. I don't know if the men have hard scrabble lives and it takes them earlier, but the women to men ratio was about 20-1, it looked like. So, but anyway, they were sweet people. I enjoyed that very much. We were honored almost by the classes in the grade school that we went to. They sang songs and put on a program for us. And the group of young girls, well, they were about 13 or 14. There were 3 of them, and they had the rest of the young ones were like first grade and kindergarten, and they're standing up there scratching and figuring and standing around looking and doing everything. And I said, well, this looks like what we see at home. Kids are kids. So then the next grades, but the oldest group, the girls were about 14. There were 3 of them, and they had the rest of the class there, but the 3 of them, they had microphones. They were singing, and not just singing, but singing beautiful, and they were singing Amen, which means He loves. And I said, we came here to help these people, to lead them a little bit, to be a blessing to them. They didn't get the message. It was backwards. They were an extreme blessing to us and to me. And I was extremely glad and thrilled that I got to go on that. And I know now why people say, oh, I've been 3 times. Well, I understand now. And would go back in a heartbeat. It was a wonderful place. We stayed in a prison almost. It started out as the lot, say this is the lot. It had a building on it about this size that sold auto parts, I think it was. Then they gradually built a courtyard around that and had 2 stories, I think, worth of rooms around the place. It was outside of not having bathrooms in each home like we think of in a motel. It had down at the end of the hallway or whatever. It was pretty wonderful. We slept rather well. I did anyway. And it was neat inside. It had a courtyard with chairs, or they'd pull out different games that the older guys could play. And at night, it cooled down deliciously cool, the kind that was just so sweet. Get me a cot. I want to sleep right here. The wind was blowing lightly. It was just, well, if God needs a pattern for heaven, that wouldn't be too bad. So I really enjoyed that. But it was beyond what all that stuff my mind thought of before. I said, what did I do with that? I didn't need it anymore. It was absolutely wonderful. If you've never been, well, I had Terry Hill. She's the wife of Jeff Hill from Ball Ground, and she says, can I ask you a personal question? And I said, yeah. She said, how old are you? I said, oh, well, why don't you guess? And I said, I want to find out if I got me a new friend or not. And she said, well, I don't like to do that. And she said, mid-70s? I said, yes, I'm 75. And I said, now why do you want to know? And she said her father was 81 in fairly decent health and was thinking about going on a mission. I guess she needed some backup for him to understand that. And I said, age is just a number. You know, there are people that are 60 years old and are worn completely out. And so if he's in good shape, you tell him to come on and find out later he shouldn't have come as opposed to and not coming. And what a blessing it was. I think that's, if you need more information, see me after class. That was great.
Well, hi, I'm Jim. It's a tough act to follow. You pretty much covered it all. I'm going to take it from a different
Do your
perspective.
best.
I'm sorry?
Do your best.
It was my first trip, and a lot of the things that he said, just kind of take it from the airport on. We're trying to do Christ-like things for people that almost don't know any different. And it is a blessing. The blessing came back. I never realized, what a blessing it was for me. But there's a demon, there's an enemy that starts from the minute you hit that airport. What we have, about an hour turnaround?
Oh, yeah.
We're running from international to domestic to TSA to pat downs to I got a knee brace on. Well, then they swab me with GSRs and they take everything apart, and you're going, I'm not going to make this flight. But by the grace of God, I think we got through it. But the minute we hit the bus, it's a 4-hour ride from the airport to where we were going, and the impact in the dry season there. Animals, just bony. There's nothing to eat. They're just eating dirt. Kids running around, just dust everywhere from the motorcycles and the trucks and the bumpy roads. And you start really considering how good we have it here. And this isn't a guilt trip. It's just a blessing. But to them, it's a blessing as well. Their heart is about the Lord. And it's almost not as much the kids. The contrast between the school that's on the mission field there versus the schools we went to up in the mountains are night and day. You saw the playground, AstroTurf and swings and soccer fields, and these little kids are serious about soccer, even at 4 years old. They're tackle sliding and they're pushing and kicking and they're having a blast. That was all donated by a sports company, I believe. Then you go out to the mountains, and I think you saw the girls jumping rope. Ed had made some jump ropes, 20 foot long. They tied them together and made them 40 foot, and there's 5 and 6 of them going at one time. I had to stop for a second, swinging it, just to kick the big rocks out of the way so they didn't break their ankles. But to them, this was just sheer pleasure. And they profess to know the Lord, these kids. The kids in the villages are sponsored at a different level than the kids in San Marcos. And it's to sponsor a kid for $70 a month. I went to breakfast with my small group the other day. We spent $75 on a breakfast between 3 or 4 of us. And I said to Stephanie, I said, what's your immediate need? They have put over 10,000 children through this mission in the last 30 years, was it?
Something like that.
Yeah. One of those children is now the director. Alton. Anyways, he's married. Harold, yes, Harold. He's married to Stephanie, who's the granddaughter of the original Tysons. And he came through the system. He's now an attorney, and he's the head of this program. What they're doing there is amazing, just God's hand, and they give all the glory to God. They needed water. They dug a well at 200 feet. That's all he had money for. Nothing happened. He said, keep going. At 280 feet, they hit a gusher. That water is now supplying not only the school, but the complex we were at, as well as the irrigation. So they're funding their own programs. They needed a wind turbine, which are really big there, but the government gets all that energy from private companies. Somebody in Massachusetts had one for $1. They prayed about it. They got it down there, and they're getting ready to erect this turbine, which is going to power the pump and possibly the electricity for the boys' dorms. It's just amazing how God works. It's also amazing how the devil works. he is doing everything he can to put his needles in there. And we saw it a couple times, not just the airport, but I got real close with Joy, a member here. Just an amazing woman, just a heart for God. And my heart has always been a servant's heart. I can't quote you a bunch of Bible verses. All I know is what we're supposed to do is treat others and how we can treat them. But right towards the end of the program, she got a phone call that her husband got put in the hospital. And serious, his platelets were down, his diabetes was affecting him, and they had to rush him to the hospital. And it just broke my heart for her. But instead of her going, oh, why is this happening? We prayed together, and thank God he went home the next day. But this is the devil going, okay, I'm gonna get a hold of this woman's heart. I'm gonna see if I can change her. She's 1,400 miles away from him, you know, let's see. And I was just praying that she was able to get back home, number one, but number two, that God would just show her I'm in control, no matter what he's trying to do for us. It was strange driving there. There were so many houses that were kind of just built and then stopped. A lot of brick structures, no roofs. The ones that had roofs, no doors, no windows. Very little furniture. Most everyone had a hammock in the room. You could see them, and a motorcycle. The fondness of your motorcycle is different than mine, because Ed and I were both on the outside wall with the street. And those Venetian windows just didn't do it. And these kids don't know how to go slow. And then, and this is 2 o'clock in the morning. So you put your earplugs in, you go to sleep, and then at 4:30 the rooster crowed across the street. So, it is truly, you saw some pictures of us up in the villages. That blue house, I don't know if y'all saw, it was like a shack. 10 people lived in that.
Oh.
What touched my heart was that little girl sticking her head out that window and just smiling because they saw this food truck coming. These kids they're no different than they are here. They want to be loved. I had one sitting next to me in one of the village churches. He just wandered around him. One behind me started rubbing my shoulders. You know, just out of nowhere. And so I pointed to the middle of the neck and he moved over. You hope you're showing these kids love. But what you're also seeing is the parents or the caretakers that are there. They're hearing the message. They really are. I kept hearing, you know, Ed talked about these pastors' things, and I'm sure he'll get into it. I don't want to steal his thunder, but as important as it was for us to be with those kids, I think what Ed was doing and the other pastors were doing were teaching and counseling these mission pastors, because they are back to the wall about it. And that'll get into what he talked with them about, but I think they had to realize that there's other, you know, you have to know how to be a pastor, but also be a father and a husband. And I think that'll get into that. But Ron and Jane, thank you for your contribution. What I did with that money, I had 4 kids I was looking at, and 2 were high school girls that had half sponsorship, $35 a month. And I'm looking at it going, okay, do I do another 35 and help this? The sponsorship gives the kids in the school a uniform, schooling, medical, and food. And this goes on throughout the year. And they're going, well, just do what you can do. You get one little girl, and it's this one, a little boy over here. And I said, I'm just gonna do them both. It's no big deal. It's what put on my heart. And I would encourage anyone to, if you haven't sponsored a child before, it's invaluable. First thing that comes to your mind is it legit? And some organizations aren't. You don't know, but you give with a willing heart. This particular organization, when you see it hands-on, it's legit, and it's forming their lives. But your money, after I sponsor these child, we go in the store and we buy them a bunch of stuff. Your money went to 2 $50 food bags. And what a $50 food bag is 36 eggs, bag of frozen chicken, and enough food to feed them for about 2.5 weeks. And that's what your contribution was. I appreciate that.
Tell them what's in the bags.
There's sugar, there's coffee, there's beans, there's
Rice.
rice, there's tortilla, flour, big bag of cornflakes. I don't even know what else was in there, but it was heavy. Lots of beans, lots of red beans. I mean, that's their staple, beans and rice and tortillas. I'll tell you a little bit more about the human factor. One of the camps we were feeding the kids at, and it was spaghetti and tortilla. And I don't know how many are there, maybe 150, 200 kids. And they're giving it out, and we're giving it out. And I went back to get some, and there's a thing of tortillas in a bowl, and the flies were around it, and I'm swatting it away, and we covered it up with the napkin. We had 12 more servings to go, and the women are handing out, and they're giving us bowls of just spaghetti. And I said, tortilla, no tortilla, no tortilla, no tortilla. I said, the tortilla, no tortilla. And I'm like, okay. They were saving that for themselves. That's the kids. So, again, things aren't much different. The humans want what humans want. But I learned not to, fight the ladies on extra tortillas. Just a blessing. I'd do it all over again. First of all, thank you for your prayers. Not only for our safety, but the trip, and for us being there as representatives of this church, representatives of Christ, and it brings it all together. The bus rides, I'll never forget. The roads, oh my gosh, we went airborne a few times. Having a bad back didn't help, but by the grace of God, we got through it. And
some of us a school bus.
The school bus, yeah. 15-mile ride takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Just go fast. Their fields were there. We saw a lot of okra fields. These people just clamor for these jobs. The government situation there is different now. The president that was there 3 years ago, maybe, was it Ed?
I can't remember when he got arrested.
Anyways, he's in New York City for drug charges, but the whole complex of the country has changed. Even though and thank God for us, the drugs aren't coming as much, but I think he kind of reinvested back into that country. We went by these growing houses that supposedly grow peppers. Just miles of this stuff, 300-400 yards long, 50 yards wide, and supposedly they were peppers now. So what they were back then, I have no idea. I'm just going to insinuate that. But it's a tough life over there. But again, the joy of these children and these families that know the Lord, that sustains them. And that's how we should be too. It should always be, we thank the Lord for what we have, and we share and give back. But it's a very easy process. It is a legitimate organization. Good Samaritans are out of Villa Rica. Even if you just support a $10 food bag, they have $10, $25, and $50 food bags. They do go to the right places, and it was truly an eye-opening blessing for me. They called it the baby mission trip because it was pretty. The accommodations were nice. It wasn't. We had, except for the showers, those were kind of weird. The showers literally have an electric power cord coming out on the top of this pipe with a shower head, and that's what heats the water.
And the dangly hose.
And the little dangly hose. What you don't want to do is reach up there and try to adjust the shower. But it was interesting. It was interesting.
Yeah, they call those shower heads widowmakers for a reason.
But other than that, Stephanie, just an amazing girl. You can see what they're going through and God's provisions for them. But can't think of anything else that really stands out. That it was good to get back home. I don't think anybody got deathly sick. Maybe a few little GI things here and there, but not too bad. But it was good to work with other believers in this church that I did not know. The gals that were there did a phenomenal job. First day or two was a little different because everybody's trying to do something, and then all of a sudden it adjusted, and then we started spreading out. We all kind of found our own comfort zones. But these are God's children, just like we are, and it was good to share with them. So, other than that, questions, comments, concerns?
I want to heap a little praise on Jim because he's got knees that give him a hard time, back that gives him a hard time. He endured that bus ride, which I'm thinking, oh, that's gotta be great for his back.
That's what I'm talking about, the devil trying to yield his way in there sometimes.
And he was down at times, but he never slowed down.
Well, same with you.
He slowed through it, and you were amazing.
We developed some good relationships. But you were the sleeper with the Spanish. I didn't know you spoke Spanish. All of a sudden I hear him talking in Spanish to somebody in conversation. I'm like, uh-huh. But thank you, Dad, for leading us. It's a comfort to have somebody that's done it before. Even more of a comfort to have a pilot with you just in case.
Who's steal an airplane.
I told him next time though we're chartering a flight, he's flying us, because that airport stuff's for the birds. But any questions at all about what we went through? Or I think we're summing it up. But thank you again for your prayers and your support, most of all.
Thank you.
And just consider, because it's very easy just to get back a little bit. But something, I think we've sponsored a kid years ago, but I'm gonna, the reason I went with the 4.5 years old, because we can take them through the next 5 to 7 years of their lives. The two girls were both older, they had like 2 years of school left, and they said, oh, we'll find somebody. But when you can invest in them when they're that young, they'll see the love of the Lord for a long time. So, other than that, thank you very much. Ed, you're up.
One of the God things that I saw, like I said, I went down there to make sure that I would. This was the first mission trip, at least in that anybody can remember, where a staff person hasn't led it. This was an experiment, and one of the things I encouraged Trent and I developed a pretty good relationship over the last year or so, and I encouraged him to get to a place where you were not relying just on the staff to lead trips, because you're hamstringing yourself, you're limited the availability, and it also gives a mindset for the congregation, oh, we're going with so-and-so. And it brings some ownership. So this was the first trip where staff did not own it, did not lead it. I've been going to Honduras for 15 years, probably something like that, when we first started going down there. This is the first time I've ever been to this particular area, but been going for a long time, and been to all kinds of other places. So they feel comfortable with, comfortable asking me to lead this trip. I went down there basically as a retired pastor to work with pastors, and I knew I was going to be working with pastors. I didn't know who, if anybody, or who else would be. And all I was told was be prepared to teach. So I started praying about what God would have me talk to them about, and basically what I shared was how to keep yourself right mentally and spiritually when everything goes wrong in the ministry. As a pastor, as a missionary, whatever, and even just in life, you get to a place where you start asking, what are you doing, Lord? What's going on? Why have you got me here? And you start beginning to question what's God's purpose. And we all have one fundamental purpose, and that is that God is molding us in the image of His Son, Jesus. And it doesn't matter whatever else is going on, that's God's purpose. And what is God doing where you're at? He's molding you in the image of His Son. And that's something that's easy to lose and very important to hang on to. And that's what I talked about. Had no clue what anybody else was going to talk about. Had no clue who was going to talk. We got together Sunday night after we got there with the pastors and the leaders that were going to speak, and Andy says, "Okay, what's everybody going to talk about?" It was a perfect train of thought. It was like we had all sat down and got together and planned it out. The only decision that needed to be made was the order in which to do it. But everything built on each other. And when we did the first one and we came out, it's like, we got to do this again. We got to do it again. So every time we went somewhere, it was can we get people there? Can we get people there? And it was literally, no, we're not gonna do it. No, we can't do it. Maybe we can do it. No, I don't know. And literally the last one, we knew we were gonna do it as we got on the bus to go to the village. I mean, it was up and down, up and down. But the really cool thing about it is everybody, it doesn't matter where you live, in the conditions you live in, we all deal with the same garbage. You know, we're all, you know, there ain't nothing new under the sun. The pastors down there deal with the same junk the pastors deal with up here. Yeah, is there a physical poverty level there that's different than it is here? Yeah. And it's real easy to lose sight of the spiritual need because you're just slapped in the face with the physical poverty. But there's a poverty that we have that they don't have. It's called community. We have a poverty of community and relationship, and they are rich in that. And if there's, you know, something we could come back and say, well, we would want, I would want that for us as a church, as individuals, I would want that in my own life. But it was just amazing to see how God worked and moved through that. This is a good intro into what International Third World Missions looks like, because, you know, Honduras is a fairly safe place to go. Yeah, the old president's in prison in New York for a conspiracy to traffic drugs. His brother's in prison in Miami for trafficking drugs, and they used that drug money to fund his last campaign. But I mean, and I don't want to get all the politics of it. They've got a new president in there that's taken a much more liberal agenda. Now everybody wants the guy in prison back. It's crazy. But anyway, I would encourage you, if you've never done anything like this. I don't know if we're going to be sending a team next year. We did the debrief, me, Brandon, and Trent, the first part of the week. We're going to do a debrief as a team next Sunday. Right now it's not on the schedule, but you know, we're looking at various things. I would encourage you, if you've never gone, look for an opportunity to go. It will change your perspective. It will change your life forever. And I will tell you, thank God I did not lead this trip. I laughed and I laughed and I laughed at my youth minister at Melbourne. We had a couple, Duke and Marty. Do you remember their last names? I just remember Duke and Marty. Marty brought his DNR with him to Honduras. You know what a DNR is? Do not resuscitate. He brought his DNR with him down there. Duke's, they're in their 90s. And he couldn't climb the mountains and stuff like that, but he was a mechanic. And he spent the whole week down there working on the mission trucks and everything. But you know, I thought that was so funny. I'm like, if anybody, I said, Scott, I've never had to leave somebody in country. I said, but God bless you. You might leave one down there. But you know, I would encourage you, if you've never gone, look for an opportunity to go. It will bless you. And I'll tell you, it doesn't make sense. You know, the cost of this trip is pretty cheap. It's around $1,700 per head to get down there. I know some of the other mission trips we got this year are about $3,500 to go. It's not an efficient way to do things. We could just send money. Let me read something from one of my buddies, David Platt. I remember when I was first preparing to go to Sudan, a nation impoverished by years of civil war. The trip was going to cost me around $3,000. It wasn't easy to travel into Sudan since they were still at war, and we would have to charter a plane and spend a few extra days to make that happen. I remember one dear lady in the church coming up to me and asking, why don't you just send the $3,000 to the people in Sudan? Wouldn't that be a better use of the money than you're spending a week and a half with them? Think of how far that money can go. That's a legitimate argument. It is. I wrestled with that question. Was I wasting these funds in order to go when I could simply give the money instead? Should I even be going? I continued wrestling with that question until I got to Sudan. There I had a conversation with Andrew that shed some light on the question. Andrew was sharing with me about his life in Sudan over the last 20 years. He had known war since he was born, and he described facets of the suffering and persecution his people had been through. He told me about the various groups, most of them secular or government organizations, who had brought supplies to them during that time, and he expressed thanks for the generosity of so many people. But then he looked at me and asked, even in light of all these things that people have given us, do you want to know how you can tell who a true brother is? I leaned forward and asked, how? And he responded, a true brother comes to be with you in your time of need. Then he looked me in the eye and said, David, you are a true brother. Thank you for coming to be with us. That's a legitimate need. And that's a legitimacy of going. Honduras is reached. There are things that we have to do ministerially in Honduras because there is junk, theological junk in Honduras that we're training up pastors and trying to protect them about. The prosperity gospel is going like gangbusters in the United States, and the United States is exporting it all over the world, Honduras included. And we have to train up pastors to protect them and help them to see the fallacy of that. Honduras is an easy place to go to. Guess who else goes? Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons. Both of them have a strong influence. They're not going to Saudi Arabia or to Morocco. I mean, that's hard, but the Mormons are flooding in, and the Jehovah's Witnesses are flooding into Honduras and in places like that. And pastors need to be trained up and taught how to combat that. So the churches need to be built up. And there's just a lot of junk out there. Catholicism is the primary religion in Honduras, and those of you that have come out of Catholicism have to you have to unlearn some things and then learn some things, and it's a difficult process, and we can go and we can help them that. And yes, there is real poverty. There is real poverty, and you will not understand that until you've seen it with your own eyes and walk through it. You know, and she's been to Haiti. I've never been to Haiti. And Haiti makes Honduras look like, you know, the Riviera. And she can tell me stuff about Haiti, and I don't understand it. I don't get it because I've never seen that. And you won't get it. We can sit up here and we can talk to you about it all day until you see it and you walk through it with your own eyes. You will not understand it. So I do encourage you, as the opportunities come up, you know, I think things are closing down and shutting down for opportunities for this year. I know we got a team going to Guatemala. I think it is pretty soon.
Aren't they there now?
No, they're not there now. I think
Trent said he would be here. He's not back.
They're doing a preparation meeting for that this Sunday. So, but they're getting ready to go. I don't know if there's still opportunities to go there. They're doing the VBS kind of stuff. But I'm just really proud of everybody. Everybody worked together really well. And just glad and thankful that I had the opportunity to lead the team.
It doesn't have to be international either.
And it doesn't have, no, it doesn't.
There's plenty in the States.
Yeah, and there's some things that we're looking at in the United States. But I encourage you, if you get the opportunity to go international, do go. Any thoughts, questions? And I do want to also share, we received a gift also for this trip. We have been sponsoring a child for about 2 years. I finally got to meet him, you know, and got to hang out with him. He's in the first grade. He has had a parasite for about 3 months. And they were gonna send him to the doctor that week, and the money that we were given, we're sending that to pay for medications, for him. So he can get the treatments that he needs, to take care of that, so thank you. That's where that's going. And
Maybe later we can talk to you and Kim about how you communicate with your child
Sure.
or send to them or.
Sure, yeah. Any other thoughts or something?
Just a comment. I mean, I only been on one trip to, it was into Rio Bravo, Mexico, and it was a very poor area also. But people who live in such places like that, where basically compared to us, they have nothing, tend and will rely more on God than those of us who are spoiled over here that have basically everything.
There is a passage, and Kim and I were talking about this on the way, and then I'm gonna close it up because I'm at church, I mean, the worship service. There's a passage in the Old Testament that the prosperity gospel people use. There's a lot of passages that they use to try to argue for the health, wealth, and prosperity. But basically, it talks about how Israel's gonna have basically a camel in every garage, and you know, and all of just be prosperous and everything. And they say, see, it's God's will. If you actually read that text in context, it's God's curse. It was God's curse on Israel that they would have all this financial blessing because it would lead them to believe that they don't need God. And you know, we look at the American dream and everything that we have and think, oh, God's blessed us. But look at all the garbage. You know, and it's easy to think that we don't need God. And that we need that our money is going to save us and stuff like this. And they do. There's a realization of need.
What we need to realize is if we're letting something like that distract us from God, He has a way of changing that in our lives.
Yep.
And I don't look forward to that way.
Yeah. Anything else?